Okay, wait, hold the ferry. Am I seriously wrapping up season 1 of Local Whidbey with Magsy? Because I am feeling a very dramatic mix of emotions right now. Joy, gratitude, and the tiniest urge to ugly cry into a glass of rosé, but like in a celebrating kind of way. Here's the scoop. This podcast, which started as me nosing around the island with a microphone, has somehow become a thing. A real beautiful, quirky thing. The podcast is averaging over 2,000 unique listeners a month, unique meaning new listeners, and the website, withmagsy.com, is where the majority of my listeners hear the podcast and is pulling in an average of 31,000 plus page views a month. I mean, that's not nothing. That's a crowd, right? Isn't it? But really, this season wasn't about numbers. It was about people. Delightfully interesting, gloriously weird, surprisingly wise people. Islanders who fish and farm and build and paint and host and sing and just exist in the most Whidbey way possible. You came on the show, told your stories, and let us all peek behind the curtain of your lives. And I just want to say thank you. From the bottom of my chatty little heart, thank you to all of the listeners, especially for your patience with my mic issues and learning how to edit audio. I'll be taking a little summer break because, hello, it's Whidbey Island and the perfect weather is short. But season 2 kicks off the first Wednesday in September, and let me tell you, the lineup is already shaping up to be phenomenal. More voices, more stories, more reasons to fall in love with this island all over again. Until then, keep exploring, keep supporting local, and if you've got a great story to share or know someone who does, head over to withmagsy.com. Click on the drop down at podcast on the menu and select pitching guidelines. This is your island. These are your stories. I'm just lucky enough to get to share them. And by the way, please share the podcast with your friends and your fellow locals. I'd really appreciate it. I'll sign off this season with love and island joy. So let's get to today's chat with the fantastic Tekla Cunningham. Welcome back to Local Whidbey with Magsy, your backstage pass to the magic, mischief, and magnificent humans who make Whidbey Island one of a kind. Today we are diving into a world of music, movement, and gut strings. Yep, you heard that right. I am beyond excited to introduce you to someone who quite literally makes classical music sing with soul and spark, the incredible Tekla Cunningham. Tekla is the founder and artistic director of the Whidbey Island Music Festival, where world-class musicians gather to perform jaw-dropping pieces of Baroque and early classical music, often on period instruments and always with heart. This isn't your average sit quietly in a concert hall. Tekla's vision brings classical music to life in warm, intimate spaces. Think candlelight, harpsichords, and that undeniable Whidbey magic. She's not just curating performances, she's creating experiences and preserving centuries-old musical traditions while inviting all of us to be part of something real, rich, and totally transcendent. So whether you're a Bach lover, a totally classical newbie, or just here for the vibes, this conversation is going to pluck all the right heartstrings. Let's get into it. Hey Tekla, it's so nice to be here in your beautiful farmhouse. One of the things that I didn't even expect is to be in your home. How long have you been in this beautiful farmhouse? 7 years, okay. And you used to live on the mainland, or?
We are back and forth between Seattle and Cooper.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know that you lived here permanently, and then, or that you even had children. I hadn't got that far into it. I'm surprised you didn't say you're going to ask about my kids. Let's start at the beginning. What drew you to the violin, and how did your love for Baroque music blossom?
Well, first of all, it's great to be here with you. I'm
Thank you.
Delighted to meet you, to get to be on your podcast. So the very beginning for me was I was born into a family that was very musically inclined. So my both of my parents sang in church choirs. And my mother played the recorder and piano, and my father played the bagpipes. Mm-hmm. So there was always a lot of music around. And
the bagpipes.
The bagpipes. And one of the things that was always just in my house from when I was born was Baroque music. So we had a lot of recordings of Bach. And my father had studied in Vienna in the late 60s and brought back some of the early recordings of Nicholas Arnoncourt's cantata series. So there was a lot of Bach on period instruments that I grew up listening to. And in their church choir, they had a director that also sang a lot of Baroque music with them. So they were getting Baroque music in their choir. We were listening at home. We were dancing to the Christmas oratory when I was a baby in the kitchen. So it was always just a big part of my life. And then the violin, I came to, I sang first in a children's choir. And then when I was about 5, I started taking violin lessons.
Okay. So one of the things that also drew me to interviewing you is I grew up in a musical family, and my mom's rules were that you couldn't listen to anything that wasn't uplifting. So I don't know. I'm way older than you. I don't know if you've ever heard of, you sign up for a subscription and every month you got a new record. And my mom had all of the great symphonies on a big long thing. Yeah. And we listened to that a lot. And she had a beautiful voice, and she was a pianist as well. But I didn't ever listen to any secular music really until I was in upper grades in high school, when I was being rebellious and listened to my radio. So I'm also have been made aware of a lot the type of music that you play and that you enjoy as well. And I even tried once to take viola lessons, but we moved and we didn't get another teacher, so I never got into that. But yes, I love the violin as well. So was there a moment in your early life when you knew music would be more than just a hobby?
Well, it was something I always did growing up. So I had lessons. I joined a youth symphony. I think the turning point for me was when I started playing chamber music more seriously in high school. And so I had a string quartet that played together a lot. And then when I was thinking about college, I knew I wanted to go somewhere where there was going to be an option to major in music.
Okay. So you've performed all over the world? Favorite places?
Let's see, I've performed in Europe a lot, in North America, and I think favorite places, now my favorite places to perform are where I know people.
Yeah.
I really love to play for people that I know. And, but I've gotten to play in some wonderful places at the Musikverein in Vienna, at the Escorial in Spain, and wonderful halls. But it's now I really value playing for people that I care about.
So real quick, because I'm just thinking these in my head. So what organization took you to those places around the world?
So I went on different tours. Some were tours from America. And then when I was a student in Vienna, I had an opportunity to play in a lot of different wonderful venues in Vienna.
Wow. Such great exposure, though, outside the United States.
Yeah, just great experiences, and great to see what people respond to, what audiences respond to and like to listen to.
So then, knowing that, what makes Whidbey Island the perfect home base for your work?
Well, what I love about Whidbey Island is the quality of listening that happens here. I find that people are a little bit more present and more, they're just great listeners, a little bit better listeners than they are in a bigger place. So I find that the quality of the focus and attention is really deep.
So what makes a good listener?
That's a great question. I think a good listener is someone who can be really present in the moment. People who have a lot of natural curiosity tend to be good listeners.
That's a good point. Natural curiosity. Yeah. It's one of my big points in our day and age is the lack of curiousness from people. I talk about it a lot, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, about having that as a character to your personality is the ability to be curious outside of your own self in your own world and that type of thing. Okay, so let's talk about creating the Whidbey Island Music Festival. How did the idea for this festival come to life?
Well, it began when I was, it's now 20 years ago, which is, I still find sort of shocking.
Were you a baby?
I was a baby. I was 30. Oh. So I had been in graduate school in California and had stayed in the San Francisco Bay Area for a number of years, and had returned home to Seattle and was visiting my aunt in Green Bank for Thanksgiving, and was kind of thinking about what I was going to be doing during the summers. I thought, well, I could go back to California and play in various festivals there. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be nicer to have the kind of create the experience that I want to see here? And so I kind of looked around Whidbey Island and talked to a few people, and I noticed there wasn't really a festival focusing on this kind of music in the summers. And so I thought, well, I think I'm going to give it a try.
Wow. So what was the first year like?
So the first year was, I think, somewhat terrifying because I'd been a member of a string quartet for a number of years, and we had self-produced concerts, but I'd never put on a series of concerts like this before. So it was there was a lot of learning. But the first year, I basically put 2 programs together and called good friends and colleagues, and I said, "Do you guys want to come to Whidbey Island and do some concerts?" People were excited, and I had a couple of house concerts to raise some funds to pay for it. So we raised some money.
Okay.
Not looking back, not very much money, just enough. But
that might be the answer to my next question, which is, oh wow, how did we pull this off moment?
Yeah. But then we had enough money to put on the concerts, and then we put on couple shows, and there were some dramatic moments. At one point, the power went out at Wicca, and Wicca's like a black box, so when the power goes out, it's not like there are windows. It was completely dark, and it was I think in the middle of the slow movement of a viola da gamba sonata, and they just kept playing. They knew the music cold, so that was a moment when I wasn't playing, but the harpsichordist and the gambist just kept going, even though it was pitch black. So that was very memorable.
So you've been doing it so long now, you've got to have some stories where you really felt like, I can't believe we pulled that off. Or has it become repetitive where everything works like clockwork now?
Well, I think a lot of things are working smoothly. And I think I remember feeling after the first year, like we, did the math at the end of the week, and I thought, oh, we can do this again another week. So we were kind of looking out. I wasn't looking out 20 years. I was thinking, well, we can do this again next week, or put on another show. So there's that's one thing that's been very lucky. I think I've always managed to start with enough funds to guarantee the fees for the artists, and then to be able to always know that we can carry on. Try to be prudent with our finances, and that's been really that's definitely been a good thing.
So what makes the festival uniquely Whidbey?
I think what makes it uniquely Whidbey at this point is we have a variety of really wonderful venues. So we've been doing concerts at St. Augustine's for 20 years now, and have seen their space also grow and change. We started in the sanctuary there, and now they've built this beautiful parish hall with a big wall of glass that looks out over Holmes Harbor, and that's just very beautiful. That's kind of a uniquely Whidbey feeling. We've done a number of outdoor concerts at Mary Fisher's Cultus Bay Gardens, which is also a very unique and beautiful venue. We play from the porch, and it's in the house that her husband built with his own hands. So it's very, the porch is kind of a covered porch. It acts like sort of like an acoustical shell, so that you can hear really well, even though you're outdoors in the garden.
Let's do a little deeper dive into the Baroque music and performance. So for those who aren't familiar, what exactly is historically informed performance? That's in your description. That's where I got that from.
Sure, yeah. So that it's a little bit of jargon. So I think it's easy to wonder, like, well, what is that? And what is Baroque music? So if you think about, let's start with what is Baroque music. So most people, I think, have heard of Bach, and he's kind of the tail end of the Baroque period. So the Baroque period roughly comes from around 1600 to 1750, and it covers, let's say, Handel, like the people might know the Messiah, Bach, Monteverdi would be at the earlier end. Composers like that people know. And historically informed practice is sort of the practice of trying to imagine. Of course, we can't know ever with any certainty what might a composer in, let's say Bach in 1720, how might the music have sounded? What tools might he have had at his disposal? So if you think about my instrument, the violin, he would have had a violin with gut strings instead of steel strings, which is what's used now in the symphony. He would have had a bow that's shaped a little bit more like a bow and arrow. It's kind of a pointier bow with a bigger curve to it versus the bow that you see now in the symphony. So the tools would have been a little bit different. And there's kind of two parts to the historically informed performance. One is trying to recreate or emulate the tools that might have been had because they make different sounds. And then the other thing is sort of more kind of a mindset. It's sort of like, what would the mindset have been, or the approach? What's the text that you're using? So if you think about like a very heavily edited book versus think about a manuscript of Shakespeare versus the Reader's Digest version. They're both, maybe they both say Shakespeare on the cover, but they're very different texts. And we try to operate from what's the composer's, how close can we get to the composer's original sort of intentions, then we try to interpret that as best we can. And then to also think about the kind of mindset that might have been at the time. So obviously our systems, like we live in the 21st century, and I think about this part a lot, about sort of like what are our bodies are different, right? We have electricity, we have access to 24-hour internet. Our nervous systems are in a very different state than someone living in 1720 who lived by candlelight,
right?
Who lived within a block of work, never had to, drive or commute anywhere. Who got up at sunrise and went to bed at sundown. Maybe they had those they had those different sleep patterns. Everything was, if you wanted hot water or a bath, you have to boil the water with wood you had to chop and haul. the sheer amount of labor to get through the day is really, I think, was very different in those days. Yeah. And so I think just having kind of an empathy for what that experience is like is sort of part of it too. It's kind of trying to have just think about it. You really try to just put yourself in another person's shoes is one way of thinking about it. And those shoes happen to be, let's say in Bach's case, shoes from 1720. So just really trying to think about what was it like and how can we convey that experience. I think the bigger question now is, well, what's the point of that? Why
does it matter?
Why does it matter? And I think, you can go to the symphony and you can hear these wonderful modern instruments that are easier to play in tune, and they're things are a little bit more evened out. And I think what's really beautiful about both the tools and the approach of this historically informed approach is that we try to get into things like a more rhetorical approach.
Okay.
So we try to think about that we're more trying to persuade with our performances rather than make something that's just purely beautiful. So it's a little bit more, there's more, I'd say, ebb and flow to and it can feel a lot more conversational. Like the way that we play can feel to people more like it's spoken than if you would play it on a modern instrument.
I was trying to imagine, you were saying that your attendees are good listeners.
Yeah.
So what would they be picking out of that? And you're saying that it would be that the performance is more conversational.
Yeah, I think, well, one, like I'll just take my instrument again as an example. So the bow has a natural, if you play the down bow, it's a little stronger, and stronger. And if you play the up bow, it's a little weaker. So there's always a little bit of just kind of there's a cadence and a more inflection than there would be on modern. And so basically you get some beats that are stronger and some are weaker, and it makes just for a more varied cadence to the music versus something that just is kind of, I don't want to say, just that feels a little more flat in affect.
Right. So you mentioned your bow. So why gut strings?
Why gut strings? So that's what they had back then. And what's interesting about gut strings is they're very flexible, so they feel wonderful under the hand. First of all,
and whose gut does it come out of?
It's not cat gut, so cat ladies, or don't worry. But it comes from sheep's gut, and then sometimes it comes from cow's gut. But for my strings, they're sheep's gut, and they are from Italian sheep. I think so. They've got
not just any old sheep.
Not just any old sheep, right?
It's an Italian
sheep. These strings from Italy, from the manufacturer there, and they also. The string manufacturers also, they go through all the historical documents and they try to find historical reproductions of the machinery. So they're also trying to do this, making the strings in a historically informed way. So if you think about, let's say, milling, we read about stone ground flour, like that's kind of the old school way, and it preserves more nutrients versus, modern ways, which might be faster, but you lose certain qualities.
Yeah, that was my next question. Is there a sound difference between a gut string and, say, what are some other things that strings are made out of?
Yeah, so a lot of them are made out of steel or different synthetics, porcelain. The gut strings have a very warm sound, and they're very resonant, but they don't project really far. So if you're trying to play in a huge hall and to reach the last person in a 3,000 seat concert hall, gut string is not as good as a really a higher tension string.
So are some of the bows made from horsehair?
Yeah, there's
horsehair.
Yeah, there's horsehair on the bows, and the bows are made out of different kinds of wood.
Okay.
So the modern bow is made out of Pernambuco, and the Baroque bow tends to be made of either snakewood. Their bows made out of blackwood. There's a little bit different types of wood, but there's wonderful different materials.
So in putting these together and you wanting it to be historical and authentic, is it just as emotionally moving as, say, something that's more modern where they've really tried to make it where it would be emotionally moving?
I think I find it to be more moving because it's more, first of all, it's a little riskier. So it's not, there are little things, it's like the gut it can squeak a little bit. It just it feels more human. It feels more, so I find it to be, and of course it depends always on the player and modern players can make wonderfully expressive sounds. But I think for me, there's an intimacy and just sort of a realness to the Baroque approach that really I find very moving, and very touching.
So, what do you hope someone who's never been, just think of someone who's never ever been to a classical concert, what do you want them to walk away with?
Well, I think what I want them to walk away with is actually none of this matters about like the instruments we play. I want them to come and have a great time.
Right.
I want them to come and feel like that something really touched their heart, that they heard something that really moved them. And I hope that they come and they make new friends and get to feel like they're part of a really vibrant community. So I hope that all of this talk about all the geeky gut string talk, that doesn't really matter so much for a newcomer or even people who've come for a long time.
You know what? You might be wrong about that. And I want to tell you the reason why. Yeah. And it's because of cell phones.
Okay.
I've seen, and I won't name them, husband, gets out his phone and looks up everything, even when we're at a concert. He's like, okay, they're playing this. Yeah. This is the music. Yes, while they're playing.
Okay.
Cool. You do that during the concert. He goes, I'll forget after I leave. I'll forget. And so he looks things up, whether it's a composer or, the name of the song and where it came from or, whatever. Yeah. He looks it up during concerts.
Well, we try to do, so we had a concert last weekend and we had one of my friends, he plays an instrument called the theorbo, which is like it's a super long lute.
If it said that in the itinerary of the music, the program guide, he would have looked that up.
Well, and we had, and John Lunty, who he played last weekend, and he gave a wonderful little explanation about what is this and what's it for, and people were on the edge of their seats. They were like, oh my God, I want to know more. So I think people really are very curious to learn about and to learn new things and to see something that they maybe haven't ever seen before. So.
Okay. So since you've been doing this for years now, and it's involved people and the community, what are some things that you've learned from putting this on over the years?
Well, so many things, obviously just the sort of nuts and bolts of logistics and venues and timelines. Always a longer timeline than you think. And I've gotten to know a lot of wonderful, wonderful people through putting on these concerts, and that's been really rewarding for me.
Well, we hadn't been to a Saratoga music event yet, and we went the other night to Oak Harbor where they were playing musical scores for movies, and it was very good, very good. And this isn't, this might make people not like us very much, but when you move from a big city and you're exposed to all kinds of things, there is a tendency when you go to things on Whidbey Island, I must confess, to be a little judgy. And wonder. From what you do and that some other things we've been to, we've been blown away by the musical talent here on the island.
There are a lot of wonderful musicians in many genres. I mean, incredible. Everything from totally improvised music to jazz to folk, alt rock. I mean, there's everything.
Everything.
It's incredible.
Dennis Brown, who I interviewed, I mentioned to you, punk. I'm like, really? He said, oh yeah, everything you can imagine. I said, so you go take pictures, once a month? He goes, no, every week, sometimes 3 times a week. Wow.
Yeah, Dennis is at everything.
Yeah.
He knows all about all the concerts.
Yet I haven't run into him yet.
Oh.
Yeah, missed you. Yeah. So what's your dream for the future of the festival? Do you have?
Well, I think the wonderful thing is the dream is happening. It's sort of I'm living the dream. It's it really is. There's kind of a fullness to what we're doing. Like this summer, we're presenting 6 different programs, and we have a lot of exciting things coming. And just enjoying the state, the flow that we're in right now.
Right.
We've kind of got a good cadence to how things work operationally, and a great roster of artists. I will say that I don't know if I was going to get to this at some point. You were going to say, you asked a question about what the festival had taught me, and I did want to say that I think during COVID we had a moment when we couldn't do concerts at all, and I think that really, for me, it was a really kind of a defining thing, because not only were we all stuck at home, right, and we couldn't see people, but we couldn't have concerts. And for musicians, that's a really, I think it was particularly devastating, because you know, you couldn't do your thing. And for me, it really underscored how important gathering is. It is the gathering aspect of concerts, and how much I love that part of it. Right. And then I really started to think about, well, how can we, when it came back, when we started doing concerts again, I thought, well, how can we do this with more intention? Yeah. And how can we get people together in more meaningful ways? So yes, we're doing the concert, but how do we actually get everyone to know each other better by putting on a concert?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm very #gather culture. We were talking earlier about my supper club. One of the goals that I have is trying to be more intentional, not just having a foodie event just to have one, but what's the intention, and making sure people get to know each other and that type of thing. And so, I totally agree with you. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you know Priya Parker's book, The Art of Gathering? So anyway, she's fabulous. But so a couple of things that I took away from that was, like, we started doing name tags for everybody at the concerts, which people kind of asked, why are you doing name tags? And I thought, well, I want to, then people can talk to each other, and I can know their names. They see my name in the perfume, but I want to know everyone's name also. And so I took a number of lessons from her about how do we kind of create the container of the event more successfully, to make everyone who walks in the door feel welcome. Right. And feel included, and feel like this is a community that they can be a part of. Right. So that's something I think I spent a lot of time thinking about that. Like, how do we?
I do name tags for my events, and I discovered these. They're not really name tags, but I discovered these little, they're little quotes, and you open them up, and there's a message to you. But on the back side, you can write notes. So I use the back side for people to put their name. And then before we all leave, I have everyone pop them open to see what their message is. And like a
fortune almost.
Yeah. And of course you're having way bigger events than I'm having, but we also, most of the time, unless it's a chaotic thing, inside, outside, that type of thing, I have everyone stop and introduce themselves to everybody, and maybe say something or tell something that people didn't know about you, or, whatever you want people to know about you. That's some of the attendees have told me that's their favorite part, is, hearing what someone feels is that they want everybody to know. Yeah. So, I totally agree with you. That's so cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
All right. So I want to do some quick fire questions with you. So don't think too hard. Okay. It's whatever you think first. Okay, so let's hit this. All right. What's one piece of music that gives you goosebumps every time?
It's the opening chorus from the Bach St. Matthew Passion.
Okay. Listener, write that down, because you're going to have to go listen to it. Let's say that one more time.
It's the opening chorus of Bach's St. Matthew Passion.
Coffee or tea before rehearsal?
Coffee. Yeah.
Coffee.
Sometimes decaf.
Sometimes, okay. Favorite Whidbey spot to decompress after a long concert weekend?
Either a walk on Evie's Landing or a beer on my porch.
Okay, a beer on your porch. Yeah, that sounds really good. Okay. All right. One composer you'd invite to dinner, dead or alive?
Definitely Joseph Haydn.
Joseph Haydn. Okay. Harpsichord or piano?
Harpsichord.
Harpsichord. So cool. A musical instrument you cannot play but wish you could?
I do wish I played the piano better. Yeah.
My mother would agree with you. She tried to teach me the piano, and I would have nothing of it. I just did some of it because she wanted me to, and like I was in 5th grade and had an attitude about it. I just didn't want to play an instrument, and so I never have. And now it's like, oh, that was really too bad. But I was very fortunate that both of my sons played instruments in high school. It's never too late
to learn.
Right. They had to have gotten that from their grandmother. It wasn't from me. Okay. Sunrise or sunset concerts?
Definitely sunset.
Sunset, of course. What's your, especially, you know what? Go back to that. Sunrise here in the summer?
In the summer,
No
it's
way.
way too early. You have to be up at 4 or
4:30?
something.
That's crazy town. Okay. What's your musical guilty pleasure?
Well, I guess I should say I don't think there should be any guilty pleasures. I think all music is great music. And I think I guess my guilty pleasure would be Dolly Parton.
Dolly Parton. Well, she's so
One
talented.
of the great songwriters
She is.
of our time.
Yeah, she's crazy good. No, that's okay. If your life were a symphony, what would the title be?
I think it would be She Did It Her Way.
And you'd sing the song with it? Last but not least, one word to describe what music means to you.
Heart.
Let's expand that a little bit.
I think it just means for me, it's just connection and love, and like it's just all the good things. It's music, it's friendship, it's conversation, it's relationships.
Well, music, literally, it's cliche, but it brings people together.
It really does.
It really does. So, thank you, Tekla.
Thank you so much, Maxie. What a joy to be with you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Had a great time. That's a wrap on another episode of Local Whidbey with Maxie. Whether you're all about island life or just island bound in spirit, I hope you all are audacious islanders. Yes, that is a plug for my merch. Thanks for tuning in and celebrating the people, places, and magic that make Whidbey Island so special. Don't forget to share the love, tell a friend, leave a review if you have something positive to say, and follow along for more stories from our audacious island. Until next time, keep it quirky, keep it local, and keep loving Whidbey. Looking to create a life filled with connection, creativity, and a little bit of audacious charm? At withmagsy.com, we bring people together in all the best ways. Join the Supper Club, where food, laughter, and great company make every gathering unforgettable. Tune in to the Local Whidbey with Maxie podcast, celebrating the small businesses and bold dreamers that make up audacious islanders and shape Whidbey Island. Transform your home with Spaces, a personalized interior styling service that reflects your style and brings your space to life. Ready to gather, be inspired, and make your space truly yours? Visit withmagsy.com today.